You are listening to Vitruvian Man with Jesse and Josh.
Welcome back to the podcast. Hello, Josh.
Hello, Jesse.
How you doing?
Doing pretty good.
Busy day?
Busy day. Been good, though.
Yeah. It's nice weather here. It's not raining, but it was raining this weekend a little bit.
I keep thinking that it's going to be over, but I don't know. I'm not banking on it anymore.
I feel like just last episode I was making fun of people that talk about the weather, and here I am talking about the weather.
Here we are.
What a loser. So today we decided, well, actually, you thought of this topic. You thought we should discuss gun ownership in America, specifically somewhat related to the topic that we're talking about, which is toxic masculinity and...
Yeah, masculinity and American gun culture.
They seem intertwined.
Yeah, I mean, American gun culture is so much different than the rest of the world, you know?
Mass shootings are uniquely American.
Truly.
As far as, I mean, we've had 4,000, I believe, over the last 10 to 20 years. 100 people die a day from gun violence.
I mean, hasn't there been like 300 already this year?
Yeah,
I mean, something fucking ridiculous like that.
It's crazy. I think we have to start out by saying Australia had one mass shooting. I think 10 people were killed, and that was enough.
They shut that shit down.
They shut that shit down immediately.
Yeah.
This notion that, our government is slow and there's checks and balances is a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
They're a bunch of cowards. Let's just say it out loud. Because if Australia can reform their gun laws immediately, then we could have done it.
Absolutely. And when you think about gun culture in other countries, I mean, I think of Switzerland because everybody is armed to the fucking teeth there. But it's all for security of the state, right? I mean, everybody there has to serve in the military. Everybody's got guns. Everybody knows how to shoot guns. But you don't get these crazy-ass motherfuckers doing what they do here.
If I recall correctly, they've got low gun deaths, too. I don't think Switzerland has high gun deaths.
Not at all.
So it's not the sheer amount of guns that's the problem.
No, that's not the problem. It is American gun culture specifically.
It is a unique beast. I think what typifies our electorates, or at least our elected officials' kind of response to guns is there was a huge shooting in Florida. I can't even remember which one because there's been more than one. And, of course, Donald Trump at the time when he was president, he said, we're going to do everything we can about this. We're going to solve this problem. Only a short time later, he signed into law a bill allowing mentally ill people to acquire guns.
Yeah.
In fact, the most insidious part of this is you can't find a picture of that signing. Apparently his team, and this is not a conspiracy theory, his team had that picture scrubbed from the internet.
No shit.
So he's willing to allow mentally ill people to have guns, but he's not willing to show you the picture of him signing the bill into law. It's pretty crazy.
Motherfucker, man.
I guess, so maybe we should start with this. This is a little quote. I got a couple quotes to sprinkle in. Just a little extra pepper to this conversation.
Spice.
So there's two, not diametrically opposed quotes, but two interesting little short ones. The first one is, Asimov said that violence is the last refuge of the incompetent, which I guess is a pretty ad hominem thing to say.
Sure.
In some ways. He's basically saying if you're incompetent and stupid, I said essentially that violence is your last resort. But I don't know. I think there are smart people that are driven to violence. So let's put that aside for a minute because I saw this one from Martin Luther King, and this is one of the ones I hadn't heard from before, MLK, which is that violence is the language of the unheard.
Right. Now that one I've heard, and I think that I heard that in context with George Floyd, all the riots.
Oh, meaning that once we've had enough. In other words, once people have had enough.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, all the looting, all the rioting, people fucking angry about the way that poor fucking guy was killed in front of the camera. I mean, just that was the violence of the unheard.
I've done some, political volunteering and some stuff like that, but I'd never been in a rally like that. And I thought, boy, this is the perfect time to go join a rally, the Black Lives Matter movement. And I went to a rally, and of course they'll say "No justice, no peace" is one of the chants that crowds all over the United States were doing in these peaceful protests, and it's really a way to put it, right? No justice, no peace. So we are not going to sit silent anymore while these people get murdered.
Right.
But what's interesting to me, take a little time out here, is that it's almost impossible to talk about this without talking about white supremacy.
Sure.
Gun sales went up drastically when Obama got elected.
Yeah.
And again when Obama got reelected. And it's not as simple as black man's coming from our guns. But that was a great chance for the NRA and the charlatans and, cowards that prey upon people to say the Democrats are coming from your guns. Coming for your guns, that is. And the problem being that the only one that loves guns more than Republicans is Democrats. Right? This has always been shown to be bullshit. That actually 60% of the country, both Democrat and Republicans, support gun control for people who are mentally ill.
Absolutely. And I think seeing some numbers, I don't remember what they are specifically, but it's an overwhelming majority of America believes in some form of gun control. But it gets shot down by those motherfuckers at the NRA every single fucking time, except for once. We'll get into that later on.
Oh, I can't wait to hear about that. But no one would consider our aggregate police officers as liberal, whiny cucks, but the majority of police officers support gun control.
Well, I support gun control for different reasons than those motherfuckers support gun control. You know what I mean?
Of course, they don't like being called to a domestic dispute and getting shot for just responding to a call, which I understand. There are people of color who would argue, if cops got theirs, I'm going to have mine.
And that is, until they are not a fucking gang with a badge, I support that fucking idea, right? I totally get that. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that disagree, and I understand it, but they're a fucking gang with a badge. They have all the power. And so the people without power, all they have is to get their own guns. And I know that sounds like I'm encouraging violence, but that's not what I'm doing. It's
protection.
It's
I think you're encouraging protection.
It's self-protection.
Also, along the same lines, women have been buying guns. In fact, people of color and women are the largest increase in gun sales over the last 10 or 15 years.
So when I was in Boston a couple of years ago, I was walking outside the hotel, and on a light post or something like that, there was a sticker, and it was a trans flag with an AR-15 on it. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then a few months later, I was listening to one of my podcasts. I think it was Popular Front with Jake Hanrahan. He interviewed the woman over there that was organizing trans gun clubs and going shooting. And that's a huge increase right now too. Gay, lesbian, trans women. I even think that liberal white guys are starting to pick up guns.
Yeah. So in other words, when you first saw that bumper sticker, you thought, ugh, is this anti-trans?
No. When I saw it, I'm like,
okay.
Because, when things are anti-trans, and they wouldn't put the whole flag, right?
Sure.
They wouldn't put the flag there. So I knew that it was a trans thing, and it was a trans/gun thing. So it took me a while to find out more about it, but eventually I did, and that's what it led to.
Yeah, and I would imagine a lot of people, we just said a lot of people are supporting gun control for the mentally ill, but I'm guessing, without being an expert at this, there's a whole can of worms opened when you're talking about an application for a gun. I don't know what they're holding against you, and I don't know if you're a person who's transitioning, meaning I'm not sure which boxes they're checking, but if we're saying that if gun ownership's a right, then it's a right for underserved, underprivileged minorities too. And what if that person does have a little, let's say, mark on their record about mental stuff?
Even having weed in California, if you have some sort of a weed violation, you're not supposed to own guns, right?
The least violent drug in the world prohibits you from owning a gun.
It's so fucking bad.
I always say,
but on that note, one of the problems I see with them withholding guns from people with mental illness is, how are they going to define mental illness? Because there's a lot of people out there that would define trans, lesbian, gay folks as mentally ill.
Of course, the DSM, the basically the Bible for psychotherapists and stuff, homosexuality was listed
it's
as
off
a
now, right?
mental illness. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But that was only a few years ago.
Not that long ago.
That homosexuality was listed as a mental illness, and that's insane.
It's fucking insane. So I kind of get this idea of not. There's so many. It's a hard subject.
Exactly.
It's a hard subject.
I was at a marketing conference this weekend for my job, and it was cold, so I was wearing my Wu-Tang jacket. Got my new Wu-Tang jacket, got to wear that. And a kid liked it. We were talking about Wu-Tang, and I was thinking about this. I essentially think about hip-hop, and this does circle back to what we're talking about here, I promise you. You know, Ice Cube, or Ice-T had that song, Cop Killer. NWA had a song called Fuck the Police. And I remember 25, 30 years ago, people were just outraged. Oh my God. Right? Oh my, it was just the hue and cry, right? And what occurs to me, first of all, is you and me and our generation and people older than us were raised on cop shows that led us to believe that cops are the good guys.
Yeah.
So that is largely responsible for our perception of police before we understood that they were a threat to people of color.
Yeah.
What's interesting is when you think of the outrage about those two songs and then now look back and understand they were telling us something, right? Those poets, and they are poets, they're artists, were telling us the police are not protecting us. The police are our enemy.
They're a gang with a badge.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that movie Colors was pretty illustrative of that too.
Exactly, and I think people like Killer Mike. Killer Mike is is one of the guys from Run to Jewels. He's a proud gun owner. He's a minority gun owner, and he espouses gun ownership for people of color, especially black people. And who can blame him?
Nobody. No, not at all. So now let's kind of get where do you think that the American gun culture, like as it stands, got its start?
Wow, got its start.
What I saw is that, I mean, ultimately it started with the frontier, and it was a tool. It was the gun was a tool that you absolutely fucking needed. And no matter what you think about colonizers and all that shit, if you're invading somebody else's land, you're going to need a fucking gun to protect yourself and feed yourself. And also, you're starting a revolution. Everybody's got to be, you know, have guns. There was no standing army, which is why there were militias, and these fucking 2A motherfuckers don't understand that, right? Or willfully ignore it.
Right.
So that's kind of where it began, but I think that it really took off. And this is just kind of from poking around and looking at American history. I think that it really started with Colt. Coming up. Colt.
Oh, Colt. I'm sorry.
The gun maker. Yeah, the guy, because he designed the repeater, the
revolver.
The revolver.
So before they were single shots before the Colt revolver?
Single shots.
And Colt was handguns, not rifles, I think, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and so then you get the Wild West, and then you've got the frontier, you've got lawlessness, and everybody's got a fucking gun.
Right.
And then it becomes basically a samurai scene with guns. I mean, if you look at like, was it The Magnificent Seven was based on the Seven Samurai.
Right.
So it's like, it's totally that culture. That's the American culture, but you know.
So I wonder, the one thing I didn't look up, I wish I'd looked up, was when did the Second Amendment kind of conversation get super heated? Was that all along? Was that more in the last 50 years? I was wondering, that was one thing I was wondering about.
You mean like people being against it?
No. I guess I was wondering when that heated up, both the pro and the con.
I think the NRA really started firing it up when they started touting gun rights.
Would that have been maybe the 50s or the 60s?
I would have to say 50s and 60s. Okay. But ultimately, I think that the NRA started out as like a hunting, you know, advocacy group.
Right.
You know, gun ownership, hunting advocacy. But then they saw the culture wars and they fucking jumped on it. And they saw they could make a fucking shit ton of money by buffaloing these dumbasses.
Right. The John Fugel said a quick thing I thought was pretty interesting. Only in America can you be pro-death penalty, pro-war, pro-unmanned drone bombs, pro-nuclear weapons, pro-guns, pro-torture, pro-landmines, and still call yourself pro-life. It's only somewhat related to what we're talking about here.
It's a nice quote.
But so back to the topic. I think, you know, seeing that the rise of women and people of color buying guns makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely.
The sad thing is, since you cannot extricate white supremacy from gun ownership, it's impossible to divest the two. The sad thing is women and people of color are now buying guns in reaction to something that's all made up to begin with.
Right.
Meaning, like, they're coming after our guns. The immigrants are coming to kill us. All these things that are false flags, that are just racist dog whistles. So it's like, on one hand, of course you understand why women and people of color are buying guns. It's a natural reaction and feel threatened.
Dude, if you're not going to... The left needs to fucking arm itself because the right is already armed.
We have a family that lives about 15 minutes from here, and they've got a lot of guns. And we've already said if there's trouble brewing, we're coming right to your house.
Heading over there.
They're liberal gun owners, and I think they've got a few. So yeah, please help us.
So let me ask you this: do you know what kind of guns they have?
Oh, they have?
Yeah.
They've got. Let's see, they've got a shotgun or two, a handgun or two. And I think they've got a rifle or two, like hunting rifles. Yeah. So, and we haven't talked about this yet. I'm not a gun owner, but you are.
Yeah.
How many? Do you want to say how many guns you have? Or
sure, I've got 4 guns.
And they're handguns, or
I've got 3 9mm and a 22.
And the 22 is a little okay. I can picture a 22 rifle.
Yeah.
Do you want to say what kind of handguns they are? Are they automatics? Are they revolvers?
They're all autos. They're all.
So autos. They have a clip.
Yeah.
They call it a magazine, obviously.
Right.
And they're all like 7, 8, 9 shots, something like that.
Because we're in California, yeah.
Right.
I think 10's the California max. Although I think that's changed recently. I think that the Supreme Court knocked it down.
Okay. And are those 45s or what's the caliber on the
9mm?
Oh, you said 9mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we've never owned a gun, but the Jews on my dad's side of the family, all from Kentucky, all own guns.
I mean, I would expect Jews to be armed to the fucking teeth, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, goddamn.
But we were talking about gun culture. My aunt, who's lovely, and of course her husband owns plenty of guns. She asked if we own guns. I said no, and she didn't understand. Like, it's just so common in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh yeah.
Just the notion of not owning any guns at all was bizarre to her. And I've always said, I mean, I'm as commie liberal as it gets, but I've always said, you know, if I'm a single parent living in a bad neighborhood, you damn right I have a gun.
Yeah.
Of course. You know, you can't rely on the police.
No.
So we've never owned one, but I totally get it. I don't judge anybody for owning a gun, quite frankly.
We should go to Vegas and go to the range and go shooting.
Shooting is fun.
It's a lot of fun. And in Vegas, you can shoot anything.
Is that right?
I went there with my dad.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, my mom was there too, and Rob. And you can get like different packages. And you know, shooting an automatic fucking weapon is so much fun.
I would really like to try that.
It's so much fun.
I've only tried the semi-auto, so it would be fun to try. And don't they have Barrett 50 calibers there too as well?
Oh my god, yeah. We shot. So it included the Desert Eagle, 50 caliber Desert Eagle, which is
it's an Israeli weapon,
a handgun.
Yeah.
But while we were there, somebody shot it. I think it was like one of those 50 cal sniper rifles. Sweet fucking Jesus.
Yeah, the repeat on that thing is crazy.
It was so loud. Even with hearing protection on it, fucking scared the shit out of me.
It's funny because how non-violent I am, but like I said, I've been playing Call of Duty for years, and I am fascinated with guns. When we were kids, long before the internet, you could go to the library and get gun books.
Yeah.
And all the guns were in there, just lined up with great pictures. And it's funny because, you know, parents that are against their kids seeing anything violent on television. I was obsessed with guns when I was a child. Not one part of me wanted to shoot anybody, though.
No, it's not. It's not about that. For me, it's not about that. Like, I just fucking love explosions. It's just so awesome.
Yeah. It's what blows me away too is those snipers. Those snipers that are you know, we always hear quarter mile, half mile, a mile. They're lobbing bullets in, which is almost too impossible for me to understand how that even works.
Yeah.
Right. They have to the Borealis or effect or whatever.
Right.
There's these things that they have to take, the wind, all these things.
Yeah.
The humidity, but that they're lobbing them in. Just I can't understand how one person could ever make a shot like that.
Well, it's not right. It's a team. It's two.
Yeah.
It's two people.
Yeah. You have a spotter, of course. It's still crazy though.
Yeah. It's insane. It's insane.
So did your parents have guns when you grew up?
Oh no, my mom fucking hates them.
Okay.
And my dad was in Vietnam, and he's not a huge gun guy, but we had fun shooting.
And then so you said you grew up in Lake County where guns were kind of common?
Mendocino
County.
Yeah.
And then since your mom didn't have guns, how did you end up owning a gun? Like, how did that happen?
Our mutual friend.
Oh yeah. Okay.
He like I'd gone shooting with people.
Oh, okay.
And he's like, let's go shooting. I'm like, yeah, okay. He's all, you should get a gun. I'm like,
why?
Yes. Yes, I should.
Yeah.
So I went and got
So you
one.
went shooting and that was it? You were hooked?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't go. It's not something I do a lot, or I mean, even very much. But I do like going shooting. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I get it. When I was in Kentucky last time, it was about 4 years ago. We shot a whole bunch of guns. Guy showed up, retired military. He had a silent rifle and a silent pistol. I got to fire those too. That was pretty interesting.
Did they have something on there to silence them?
Yeah,
or?
so that's
Okay.
only legal if you're ex-military, I believe. I'm
Okay.
saying that right.
Yeah,
and
that
he
makes
is
sense.
a nice dude. He let us try his little pistol and his rifle that were silenced. So it's pretty wild to fire a shot, but just you hear a hammer click, and it's insane.
That's
so,
insane.
Yeah.
It's too bad because there was. Well, we should get back to this.
Yeah, okay.
But I was gonna say there used to be shooting ranges around here, but they're all getting shut down.
Oh, yeah, there was one in Katati, wasn't there?
Well, there's one out at Two Rock, and then there used to be some up in Lake County, but after the Tubbs fire, it got shut down and
okay.
never reopened. And then there's other places you can get to, but you have to have a 4x4 to get out.
Right. Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not really that accessible.
Not really accessible.
So
Okay. So
anyway,
yeah, let's get back to it.
Okay, you got it. This is a little interesting. This is a bit of an aside in the research that I was doing about gun ownership. And David Nywert, he's an investigative journalist for the Southern Poverty Law Center. He was talking about kind of white hate and gun ownership and stuff like that. And what he was talking about, I had never heard this before because he was kind of sprinkling in some toxic masculinity talk, which is kind of things that we're talking about. He was you've heard of the term cultural Marxism?
Yeah.
You must have heard someone.
Everybody fucking Jordan Peterson goes on about that shit
Does
all
he?
the time. Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay. I've never personally been called a cultural Marxist. I wouldn't bother me. I'm a socialist. What do I care?
What?
But I love it that Jordan Peterson is using that term, and that was coined by a white hate group. That term was invented by white hate people. I can't name the organization. I don't remember which one it was. But that was literally a Nazi propaganda, right, to just have an ad hominem attack against liberals. So cultural Marxism.
Interesting.
So Jordan Peterson is repeating the language of white hate.
That doesn't shock me in the least.
Yeah. We were talking about him the other day. I saw him in a quick little snippet on YouTube, and all a woman asked him, she said, well, what about, what can we do as individuals when things like global warming and all these, she named 4 or 5 awful things. What can we do when this just feels so overwhelming? And he basically just insulted her. And he basically just said, if you don't have your own house in order, don't worry about things that are global politics. I don't know what he knows about her, why he would know that she doesn't have her own house in order.
You need to make your bed.
It was such a bizarre thing to say. She was just saying it's overwhelming. What the hell can we do?
Right.
She wasn't actually attacking him, but he got pretty defensive.
It doesn't take much.
Yeah. So back to guns.
Yeah. So where do you think it got so off the rails? I mean, shooting, like the Wild West was the Wild West. And things, I think, probably calmed down after the law moved in. Because basically that was, the guns were filling a vacuum for law. Because there was no fucking law on the frontier.
Sure. And
so,
only, again, like you said, was practical.
You needed to have
I'm
one.
sure Mexicans, you said, settlers and colonizers has them. But of course, other people of color, minority groups, of course they would have
Absolutely.
guns. Everyone had a gun because you needed to protect yourself.
You needed to protect yourself because there is no law. Right. But so where did it go like so off the rails? I mean, I think about like the gangsters in the 20s and 30s and running moonshine runners and all that.
And guns have been a large part of our popular culture, right? On television shows and movies.
Sure.
Since the movies were a thing.
But like today it's so much fucking worse. It seems to me.
I'm going to ask you this. Would you be surprised, because I haven't found this specific data yet, would you be surprised that this new kind of gigantic explosion of guns happened soon after the kind of paranoia started? Because I don't remember they're coming for your guns in the 80s. Reagan was president.
Yeah.
Was he was already saying they're coming for your guns?
The NRA was, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
the 80s, that was the thick of it. That was when it really fucking started.
I would imagine that kind of rhetoric must have really stoked gun sales and steamrolled.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like you have people like the NRA and the John Birch Society, those those two people, because fuck John Birch Society, those two groups, I think, were the ones that really started pushing that narrative.
You know, the Koch brothers, they're one of his, it was like, they're brothers, right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, okay.
You know, their father was one of the founders of the John Birch Society?
And
a racist organization, basically an arm of the KKK.
And it's not pronounced Coke.
Oh, it's cock. Is it? Everyone says Coke, but it's cock?
It's absolutely cock. It's the Koch brothers.
Wait, that is correct?
No.
I'm totally talking shit. All right. And plus, I love drinking Coke, so I hate thinking of the Koch brothers when I'm drinking Coke.
Yeah.
So I wish it was pronounced cock. That would be great. But yeah, I mean, obviously, racist dog whistles, and, you know...
They're coming for your women.
Yes, they're coming for your women.
Yeah. They're
coming for your guns. Here come the commies.
Yeah.
They're coming to get them.
Right. Anti-communist bullshit.
It's insane. And if you look at the failure of our government at the legislative level to do anything about this, it's actually about as epic as it gets.
Oh, yeah. Well, is it a failure? They just, I think it's intentional.
Sure.
I mean, there's so much money getting thrown around by the NRA and those kinds of groups that, I mean, as a politician, it's impossible for you to turn down that money. I mean, the only person that's not fucking dirty is Bernie, right? I mean, he's like, I'd even question AOC just because I don't know enough, but I know that fucking Bernie's clean. Everybody else, I just assume is fucking.
You're talking about contributions from NRA,
whoever, yeah.
They've got their hands in almost everybody's pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's obviously, like there was one of the mass shootings the Democrats staged a sit-in to try to get a bill passed. That didn't do anything. It got killed.
It never does fucking... Democrats don't do shit. They don't fucking do anything.
One thing Bill Rohr is right about is the Democrats are awful at politics.
They're horrible. And they eat themselves. Yeah. The fucking left eats itself.
Yeah, Al Franken was a great example of just someone getting steamrolled. If you do research on that, I read a wonderful article about that written by a woman who basically said it was nonsense. But yeah, the Democrats sacrificed him almost immediately.
Yeah,
because they don't want to seem,
stupid as shit.
Hypocritical. If they're canceling certain politicians, they've got to cancel their own. They did it ridiculously quick. But yeah, Democrats are awful at fighting for themselves, and they're the worst at co-opting language. No one is better at co-opting language than the right wing. The right
nails it. I mean, yeah. The fact that they have turned somehow the left is racist now, I don't know.
They're racist against Christians.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Christians aren't a fucking race. Neither is Islam. Islam isn't a fucking race. God,
I just got new license plates, just hoping I would get turned down so I could take it to court because it's satanic. But we'll see how that goes. It got approved apparently, so we'll see.
Really?
But yeah, separation of church and state is hilarious because apparently Reagan loathed the idea of religion being embedded in politics as much as he was a right wing, cheerleader for everything, and people love Reagan.
Don't say anything good about him.
Don't. I just saw a video the other day. Have you seen these alpha male camps?
Oh, Jesus.
Where people can spend $8,000
saw that.
to get shouted at by big muscular men.
That sounds...
Yeah. It's probably impossible to separate these two. If men are searching for what it means to be a man, the idea is if being a man is still related to violence and aggression and maleness is physical, it just feels like the perfect kind of side dish to gun ownership.
Right.
Or at least, gun paranoia.
Fear and insecurity, right? I mean, I think that drove a lot of the white male gun ownership and fear of losing their place as the main person in America, and insecurity about what being a man is in a way, because they're, like we've talked about, it's you're moving away from your standard definition of being man, masculinity. And it's something that they don't understand, but they do understand that a fucking gun makes them powerful. And that I think is like the real issue with men and gun ownership.
Right. Mao Zedong said that ultimate power is wielded in the barrel of a gun.
Yeah.
That's, I think, his response to the pen is mightier than the sword. And you remember Bernie Goetz, Bernie Goetz might have been the 80s. He was
Oh,
that
yeah.
subway traveler who murdered, I think, 3 or 4 people. He was a vigilante.
Well, he fucking shot those 4, or was it 5 black kids?
Yes.
And I think a couple of them died. Some of them are still around.
But I think that might be one of the earlier kind of shootings where we can point to white male rage, not necessarily as the cause, but like it wouldn't be surprising.
No, that was absolutely
to
the
see
cause.
that was tapping into a lot of rage and
No, that was
angst.
absolutely the cause. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the first one that we can probably pin it down to is Bell Tower guy in Texas.
Oh, is that Kent State?
No, that
that's
was
a different one.
the cops. That was the cops,
Right.
No, that was the guy that.
I'm sorry, that's right.
Went up into the bell tower at Texas University.
Yes, was he a Marine?
He clocked a few people.
That's one of the earliest mass shootings. Was that in the 60s? Maybe?
Yeah, that was, and he actually left a note saying, "I think you need to look at my brain."
Oh,
because I don't know why I'm doing this.
Wow.
And they did, and he had brain damage. It was either brain damage or a tumor. But he actually ended up having it was a mental issue. It doesn't excuse it, of course.
No. Did you ever read that quote or that stat that 50% of people serving time in prison at these maximum security prisons have had a head injury?
I mean, it totally makes sense.
Which is pretty insane. So that means you can get the shit kicked out of you by your father as a child, kill him, end up in prison, and be punished for a brain injury.
Right. Yeah, that's rough. I mean, that's the CTE that you get for football players and those
Right.
things. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, I mean,
but
prison in America is its own fucking problem.
Prison is the new slavery.
Dude.
There's a book called Prison is the New Slavery. It's kind of hard to look around that. I mean, we talked about, right, if the CIA is selling drugs on the streets of Los Angeles to fund illegal warfare, which they were.
It absolutely was the Gary Webb, rest in peace.
Yeah. Well, the guy who reported it on the San Jose Mercury News got fired.
Gary Webb.
Was that Gary Webb?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. And then it turned out way worse than he said it was.
And somehow he killed himself.
Oh, I didn't know that.
By shooting himself in the back of the head.
Jesus.
He did.
By the back. That's not a thing.
He shot himself 3 times.
But I was going to say was that if the CIA is selling crack, which they were, there's a show about it called Snowfall on Hulu, really good. And we are simultaneously putting people of color in prison for smoking crack, right? That is a closed loop.
Yeah.
The jailer, the oppressor, is selling you the drugs and then putting you in prison for using the drugs.
Now, I think at the same time, and I'm willing to be fact check and wrong on this.
Sure.
But there were trainloads of guns going into Los Angeles, middle of the night, stopping. People would go in and steal them, and they'd hit the streets. So there was not only drugs being sold by the CIA, they were importing guns into the ghettos.
Oh, I didn't know about that part.
Now, this is something that I'll have to check into because but this is one of those, and it could be
apocryphal, yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of bullshit. But I mean, it doesn't, the problem is that that's not out of the realm of possibility. That's a real fucking possibility.
But we do have to bring in prison to this. You said prison.
Yeah.
I mean, right, we have a huge prison population. We definitely have the largest prison population of any industrialized nation, I believe.
Yeah, oh God, yeah.
And, if these are gladiator academies, which they are, there are a few prisons in the United States that actually put an emphasis on, helping kind of getting them degrees and rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Pet therapy, all kinds of things to try to make them productive members of society as opposed to gladiators. But as we know, a lot of prisons aren't like that, so they're just pumping out people worse than when they got there.
And private prisons are the fucking problem.
Private prisons, private hospitals.
Yeah.
Profit-driven prisons is the evil. It is super evil.
And I mean, God, I just read today that, since they're having difficulty finding people to do farm work, they're renting out prisoners. And that's called fucking slavery.
It is.
And of course, it's impacting people of color more than anything else. Of course, it is. I mean, it's like the chain gangs from the fucking 30s. It's like, what the fuck?
It is. What I'm about to say sounds like insane conspiracy theory. It's not. Prison industries are one of the most profitable companies in the United States, and may even be one of the most profitable companies in the world. They make billions. Obviously, their staff makes, whatever it is, 10 cents an hour or 50 cents an hour.
Yeah.
And, these prisoners aren't just like pressing license plate. They're doing customer service, right? They're doing phone calls. They're doing all kinds of things. What is the government's incentive to, let's say, do anything about prison reform if it's making billions?
Nothing.
It's insane. It's crazy.
It's insane. So, with the gangsters in the 20s and 40s, that definitely set kind of like the idea for it.
You mean like glorifying guns?
Glorifying guns, and totally the stories that were told, and kind of rightfully so in a way. Like it was the stories that people grew up on.
Yeah, westerns, obviously. My father-in-law used to love westerns. He'd call them shoot 'em ups. But there was always good gun battles and gun smoke.
Yeah,
show called Gunsmoke. I mean, come on,
Gunsmoke.
But yeah, so obviously through the popular culture, it's definitely I don't think that caused massive gun ownership, but it definitely is a part of American culture.
It's part of American culture.
It can't be separated, obviously. When we were kids, we saw a million. What do they say? By the time you're 18, you've seen thousands of gun murders on TV and film.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, it's different in other countries. You see sex on TV, and you don't see. They cut out 20 minutes of gunplay and leave the sex in.
Yes. And they, of course, have low murder rates.
Yeah.
So when I saw a bumper sticker the other day, it said, guns don't kill people, gun owners kill people. Which, you're a gun owner. I like you. You're not killing anybody.
But today. But, so then you move into like the 60s and the peace movement. I think that's where a lot of the classic, the liberals started moving away from that. They started moving, into kind of a peaceful thing. Maybe not.
I think the Vietnam War, right?
That helps.
Probably helps because
that helps.
There was a huge protests against the Vietnam War, and I think that became
a pacifist sort of movement. Yeah. And then you have like the Panthers who armed themselves to protect themselves in Oakland.
So for the members of our audience that don't know, so the Black Panthers decided to arm themselves.
The Black Panthers
to protect themselves.
That was an organization that was created to protect black folks in their own neighborhood.
Yes, and tell everybody what the U.S. government did in response.
Well, so they opened carry. Because they knew the law. They had the law down, and so anytime the cops came into the neighborhood, they were there with guns.
Right,
and they knew their fucking rights.
Exactly.
And well, amazingly, the NRA decided that, maybe some legislation is okay. Huh.
So we had never had gun control laws on the books. Am I right?
I don't know if there was none, but it was very minimal. And the only thing, like the NRA had always been opposed to any kind of gun control until the Panthers.
Right. So, Daddy, what is systemic racism?
Yeah, right. Jesus Christ.
It's kind of this, right?
Yeah,
I mean, this is what you point out.
Yeah. So then they pass those laws,
right?
And then you still have guns, but they're more illegal. And of course, it's like crack and powdered cocaine. There's two laws that apply to two different groups of people. So then you get the gangsters and all of that, and it's just more illegal. Well, it's illegal as opposed to not being illegal,
right?
But I don't know. Fucking such a
It's throw your hands up.
Yeah, it's like and then where do you go from there? Like, how does that move into the insanity of the mass shootings now? Like, I feel like the Panthers were doing something to protect their neighborhood, and I totally respect that.
Of course. And
then moving into today, almost all, like I guess 98% of the mass shootings are perpetrated by white men. 98 fucking percent. I think the only one that I can remember was that dude on the East Coast that was pegging people on the highway. Do you remember that?
Was that BTK? Are you talking
about, no.
BTK. Okay.
No, because it was a black dude, and he had gotten himself an apprentice.
Oh, that's right.
And they were out shooting people, and it took him a long time.
But that's the only black
That's the
mass
only
killer I can think of.
that I can think of.
Yeah.
I think that
There was an Hispanic one a few years ago.
in Texas, right?
Or Florida, I don't even remember. But there's too many of them. But and it's this big Ouroboros snake eating itself, right? Like if liberals are coming after our guns, we got to buy buy more guns, right? If immigrants are coming to kill us, we need more guns.
Yeah.
White supremacy is a problem. Now let's women and people of color buy guns because we need to protect ourselves from the insane white supremacists.
I mean,
this one giant loop of not misinformation, but just paranoia.
Gun ownership. Yeah.
Yeah. And boy, what do we do about that? I mean, all we can do, right, as far as like solutions, I mean, obviously the NRA needs to be, again, this is all campaign finance reform. All these political problems are campaign finance reform.
Agreed.
Even who ran with Sarah Palin? McCain was for campaign finance reform. Famously, as Republican and conservative as he was, he understood that money in politics was a bad thing, and for years tried to get bills passed to promote campaign finance reform. No, his Republican brothers were not having it. So. Until we divest money from this, it seems like it's impossible to do anything about it.
Citizens United was the end of the American experiment.
Well, corporations are people.
Fuck you, Jesse. I can't even laugh at fuck you, man.
This Supreme Court is a disaster. I mean, when the Supreme Court, when 7 people decided a presidential election, that right there should have scared the shit out of people. The founding fathers would have been horrified to know that 7 people decided a presidential election.
Yeah.
But have they had a good decision? They've had so many bad decisions in the last few years. And to me, one of the roots is Antonin Scalia.
Oh,
a devout Catholic piece of garbage.
Well, the Federalist Society.
Yes. And Clarence Thomas was a bootlick of Scalia. And just the way you look at this court, the way they've ruled on things, it's like they're not even pretending to be impartial.
Have you ever watched The Boondocks?
Oh, the cartoon. I remember reading some of the strips, and I haven't seen the TV show. I know people love the TV show.
I was given permission by a friend of mine to call Thomas Justice Ruckus.
Justice Ruckus? Is that what they called him on the TV show?
Well, there's Uncle Ruckus who is. You'd have to watch the show.
Shoot.
It's
okay.
Check it out.
You got it. Yeah. Text it to me. I'll watch it.
Okay. But so I guess since we're looking at American gun culture and masculinity, how do we? I feel like part of the solution is minorities and liberals getting guns. I feel like that's part of the solution.
Do you mean to balance things out?
To balance things out, to give a counterweight to this toxic masculinity gun ownership, because it keeps people in check. It's just like the internet. Once you get punched in the fucking mouth, you learn maybe not to say something.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we would like a better solution than that, but
Obviously.
Is one in the offing? I don't think so.
We can't do it in America. There's no getting rid of guns in America. That is the toothpaste done been squeezed out that tube. There's not, you're not taking away the guns. That's just not going to fucking happen.
Exactly. I guess part of, we were asking about this question maybe last week. We were talking about how do we overcome this, and I said kindness and empathy, and obviously that sounds very idealistic. But for example,
but it's true. I totally agree with that.
Well, like for all the white people that have been estranged and isolated, and been made paranoid by all this ridiculous rhetoric, I think them understanding that this Mexican guy over here just wants to protect his family too, and this black guy over here and this trans person is just looking to protect their house, and they don't care about they agree that you should be able to own a gun. They are members of the NRA. They just want the same protection that you do, and it's almost like people have been so othered and devalued and like deprogrammed as people. It's like we almost need these town halls. It would be great to have town halls with gun owners.
Yeah.
And it would be great for people to meet each other. And it would be great for, kind of white paranoid people to see how similar they are. Because I think that, right, the politics of estrangement, the politics of separation have made it seem like these things are so disparate.
Yeah.
When really, in fact, we have a lot of things in common.
Yeah, no, I think that a different gun advocacy group would change a lot. Something that wasn't so obviously fucking white supremacist. I mean, the NRA is just so fucking ridiculous. They like, if they aren't fucking registered as a hate group, they really fucking ought to be,
exactly.
right? And I think that having an inclusive gun ownership advocacy group would go a long way to changing the idea. And I think that having something like that would actually promote the idea of some sort of gun restrictions, mental health, background checks, these kinds of things. They're super important. But that's just not going to happen in the current atmosphere. And I think that it's going to take more gun ownership rather than less.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
No,
I can't even
either.
refute that. I mean, I guess that hadn't occurred to me specifically. But I mean, is there a possibility of a race war happening in this country?
I don't.
Yes?
Yes.
There is.
Yeah.
I mean, there is already. It's a Cold War, you could argue.
Yeah, I mean, the FBI came out with a study, I don't know, a few years ago, basically warning people that the Nazis have infiltrated the sheriff's departments, the police departments, and the military. And
Right.
they've done it with the express intent of learning how to fucking shoot guns to start a fucking race war, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a thing.
One of the things I did some research on was I didn't know that there was a training video made. It was a tactical training video made by some ex-military guys. It was on DVD back in the day. It was like maybe 15, 20 years ago, but it was a huge seller. And it wasn't the beginning of, but it was one of the earlier examples of, let's say, the non-military members of the country kind of getting excited and interested in tactical training. Mm-hmm. And they use AR-15s in this video, of course, and that's the most popular weapon in mass shootings. But I think Call of Duty, the game that I was telling you about last week, I think obviously the kind of fascination with the military and the fascination with military tactics has made a special kind of mass murder in this country.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it spread. That dude in New Zealand, that kind of militia style training is spreading. Oh fuck, Germany. Germany.
What do you have against Germany?
Well, there was this little conflict with the Jews a few years ago.
Did I ever tell you? This is a little funny. A German, a lovely person, once told me that Americans were really violent. I paused. And I had to think about that for a minute because it's true. Yeah. And yet ironic. Yeah. Americans are super violent, but it was pretty ironic for a German person to say it.
Coming from a German? Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, the thing about Germany after the war is that their shit is that is taught. That history is taught expressly to keep them from fucking doing it again. And AFD and other people are trying to fight that. They're trying to say that's not fair.
What's AFD?
Alternative for Deutschland. It's the right wing party.
They don't like the true history of Nazi Germany being taught.
I mean, it's the same thing that you get here. Well, it's not fair that maybe tell the other side of the story. You're right. There's no fucking other side of the story.
Yeah, I mean, in 4 seconds, our textbooks are super racist. Most of the textbooks in the United States are made and placed in Texas. Yeah, and have been super whitewashed. Did you ever hear the term Black Wall Street when you were in high school? Because I didn't.
No, I didn't hear about that for a long time.
Yeah. So our textbooks are super racist.
Yeah,
and the thing is, I'm an advocate for reparations. I can make the case for reparations. I've read enough about it, about systemic racism, to understand why reparations are important. But how do you have a meaningful talk about reparations when our citizenry doesn't even know the true racist history of this country?
Well, and now in Florida, they're saying, the textbooks are saying that we taught the slaves skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what do you...
So there was an upside to slavery?
Yes.
Josh, are you saying right now
that
slavery wasn't all bad?
No, I'm not saying that.
Yeah. And it's crazy, the stuff that's in these textbooks.
No, the shit that they're fucking whitewashing the history so much. Yeah. It's just it's insane what's happening right now.
Yeah, I didn't. I was at a little display the other day. It was a kind of this guy had at the college where I work at had posted a little exhibit of his little family's experience with slavery, and one of the things he had was a slideshow that talked about, so let's say, lesser known accomplishments by black inventors, for example, that we don't know about.
Yeah,
Wright brothers didn't invent the airplane. Black guy did it.
Huh.
A black guy invented the airplane, and it's like that so typifies our education system. Yeah, part of this whole thing we're talking about, this whole, let's say, momentous like steamroller of misinformation and hate and paranoia. It's like, it's just crazy how racist our textbooks are.
And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like that's causing this backlash. Like the fact that we're taught this, and then later the information comes out that that's not correct, and people fight that.
Sure.
Because it makes them look bad, right? So it's this backlash to, it's a backlash to racist education, right?
But people, and that's the thing about being right or wrong, or having your foundation shook, assumptions that you had. We said the other day that, question your own beliefs is a kind of a good philosophy in life. Yeah. Could I be wrong about this? Maybe I could be wrong about it. But as far as like making amends and kind of healing, the only way to heal is to get past shame, right? Shame is the thing you feel when you've done something awful, but that's not the final step in therapy, right? Shame is the beginning of the talk, not the end of it, right? So I think a lot of white people do feel shame about slavery, even though obviously they themselves had nothing to do with it. There's this collective shame, and I think that's why people are so
defensive,
angry and defensive,
yeah.
And it's like, this is a thing about therapy, and therapy needs to get beyond shame into amends and grief, and sharing that grief and listening, right? Listening to black voices and the experiences they've had.
So do you think I'm trying to bring this back here. So do you think that kind of shame is contributing to the mental illness that is pushing forward these mass shootings and things like that? Do you think that, like, trying to relate these things all together, because I do think that they're all related in some way, but I don't think I'm smart enough to put it all together
me neither.
right now,
Me neither, but that's a good question.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Obviously, you can feel shame and be completely mentally healthy.
Absolutely.
So,
but if you have a problem with holding two different ideas in your head, that's going to set up like a resonance that could very well push you over the edge and fucking have you go out shooting people. And I mean, it's not just, I mean, they're not just shooting black people, but they're shooting women. They're shooting everybody that makes them feel bad. It's like what I feel like, right? So it's all being a contributing factor to this mental illness that's driving these mass shootings.
It's like America is this big test tube, and we've had this perfect little kind of confluence of events, not to make more mentally ill people, but very much to cater to some people's basest, worst instincts.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that we have more mentally ill people than anywhere else. However,
no.
It's clear though that the messaging, the kind of white rage, all these things, it's this magical, horrible little like confluence of things to make this kind of mass murder, right? To give voice to all this hate and racism.
But then you've got these grifters just fucking pushing the narrative to make their own, to give them power, to give them money, and they take advantage of these poor fuckers, the incels, all these people that are feeling impotent, so they go out and they kill a bunch of people.
Yeah, you taught me the other day what a simp was, right? A man that sympathizes, or at least
the sympathy is not the base for it.
I'm sorry, a simp. Say simp one more time.
So the simp is basically the cuck that does anything for the chick.
But I think what occurs to me is, like, if you're an incel and you feel angry and frustrated and ugly and, let's say, unattractive,
right?
The way, like, to overcome that is to start listening to women, to be at least sympathetic, right? And it's just interesting to me that, like, rather than like give young men practical advice, well, ask her what she does for a living. What book is she interested in?
This is totally like, it's reminding me of Love on the Spectrum.
Oh, right.
Where there's like the woman therapist. It's like, so you need to ask them questions and listen.
Yeah,
it's the same kind of advice.
Mary and I were watching that show, and they're on a date, and my wife says out loud, "Stop talking about fucking dinosaurs," because the guy just would not stop talking about dinosaurs.
That's so funny.
Yeah. It's like, I know your date is, also mentally challenged, but she doesn't care that much about dinosaurs. So change the subject now.
Yeah.
Anyway,
let her bring up the subject.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, this is the thing with Jordan Peterson, is that basically, like, a lot of his early advice is reasonable. It's mundane. It's pointless. But if you haven't heard it before, it might help you. But then he fucking moves into this whole grift about fucking cultural Marxism and bullshit like that. I mean, he's an insidious fucking piece of shit. But that guy. Does he
actively talk about maleness, or like?
Yes.
And what does he say what a man should be, or what does he address that, or no?
Obliquely.
Okay.
Like, I don't think that he is so obvious. And when we do it might even be a double episode of that fucking piece of shit. Because I'm going to have to spend a lot of time looking at YouTube videos, and it's really going to...
You're going to do some hate research? I'm hate researching this guy.
Fucking this rat bastard.
Josh, I'm running out of bullet points. Did we cover everything we wanted to talk about?
Well, I think all that we got left, right, is... So we've... Like, what are the options to change American gun culture and its association with masculinity? I think that we've kind of addressed that, but I don't know if there's a solution in America. I do think that more gun ownership in America at this point is kind of the only way to push any solution forward, because once the wrong people own guns, then shit starts to move.
Do you think that maybe the weighty will get freaked out enough about the rise in minority gun ownership, they'll actually look at checking their own behavior, or because you said it's a solution?
I think that yes, I think it'll check their behavior, right. But also it'll push forward legislation because it's a racist fucking country.
So and once they notice again that black people are arming themselves, right. They're going to do something about it. Finally,
then shit gets passed.
Absolutely.
But I mean, American dude, was it 125 guns for every 100 people?
Wow, that's not enough. I think we need more.
Fucking armed to the teeth.
Yeah. And again, we talked about it. I loved guns when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So the fascination with machined things, just holding it in your hand.
Yeah.
It is an interesting sensation.
It is an amazing piece of machinery. It really is.
Yep.
I mean, do you have any not bullet points, but any ideas about how to deal with I mean, I guess checking in, how do you deal with mental illness in guns? Right. How do you deal with kind of helping people that are on the edge of becoming
Okay, so there we go. Now we're talking about mental illness in this country.
I think that's a big part of it.
So obviously we have a ridiculously awful mental health system in this country. Let's forget about stigma for a second, like the people stigmatize the mentally ill. Our ability to deal with the mentally ill, to treat them, to help them, I'm certain is third world status. Not to disparage third world countries, because ours is probably worse.
Well, I mean, we have money.
Yes. Right? So that's the thing. With no universal health care.
Yeah.
For example, if you're a college student, you can get free counseling. Our college has that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
But in general, though, if people are isolated and they have no one to talk to, I think that's where becoming so isolated makes this a big problem. So until we address the mental health issue in this country, it'll never have a chance of getting better.
And I mean, I think that a huge contributor to the whole thing is the internet. The internet has turned into just a fucking cesspool. For research purposes, it's got good stuff, but all this fucking social media shit, all these assholes that are on there on fucking YouTube. I'm sure we're going to be on YouTube, so we can be assholes on YouTube too. But you know, I mean, like these people are really driving that fucking problem, and whether they are doing it knowingly or not, it doesn't fucking matter. The end result is the same.
I think people really they don't have the ability to understand what's real and not real on the internet.
Right.
I think people, you know, you can go to a website right now that tells you vitamin C helps for cold virus, and that simply isn't true.
Right.
Right. Right now, if I Google it, I'm sure I'm going to find the top few results seem credible. It might even be called WebMD. It's not called WebMD, but it might even have a credible sounding name.
God, there's one that's natural healing or some shit. That's just the worst at putting out information.
But if you can't decide, if you can't learn easily if vitamins are good for you, how can you learn about these more complex issues?
How can you learn about role models? How can you learn about people that you can trust to tell you the right thing? It's just
right.
It's fucking horrible. And AI is just going to complicate everything.
It already is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Robots are coming for us. Did anyone watch Terminator or Terminator 2?
Yeah, right. How about that asshole in Japan that actually fucking named his company Skynet? What a fucking dick, dude.
You understand Skynet was the villains, right?
That's the bad guy.
What are you doing? What's happening right now? Yeah, the AI. It's crazy. AI robots. There's a robot sushi place in Santa Rosa. Have you tried that place?
No.
Yeah, robot brings you food. So.
Oh, I'll have to try.
I mean, it's just a race car, but it's not a humanoid robot. Those are expensive.
We were at one in Boston, and there was this little robot trundling around.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What the hell's going on?"
Did he bring you the check?
Well, no, it didn't actually do anything. I went up and asked the people. I'm like, "What's up with the robot?" And they're all, "Well, you should, you can order it off of there. You can order off the screen, and it'll bring it out to you." But the kids ended up taking everything off the robot.
Do you mean they deleted stuff?
No, the kids will just come up and take shit off the robot. They're like, "We can't use it anymore," so it just walks around.
He's just doing his own thing.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
I'm sure robots being sentient and just doing their own thing, it's not a problem.
Skynet
should be great.
It's fine. Everything's fine.
The many scientists have warned us about the evils of AI, and it's, I don't know. I can't say something good about it. It's clearly entrenched in the culture, and especially entrenched in media, but it's a little scary.
Yeah.
Given what very important thinkers have said about AI.
And it's really going to push. It's going to make it difficult for people with mental illness to know what's real. It's really going to be.
Do you mean because it so caters to their paranoia, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's so real, and if it's backing their narrative, then they're going to believe it,
right?
And it doesn't have to be like a lot wrong. It just has to be a little wrong to push somebody over the fucking edge.
Yeah.
I mean, once that happens, when somebody goes out and kills people because of something they saw that was AI generated, that might start a real discussion about it.
Gotta hope.
But I don't know. Before we get out of here, how about that dude in Vegas that shot up that country festival?
Oh, what about him?
Nobody knows why.
Oh, so was he killed in the scene?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But there was no background check on him that revealed what was going on with him.
They couldn't find anything. They couldn't find anything that drove it.
So
at least as far as they've released.
Was he off the grid? He didn't have social media accounts?
No, he was pretty off the grid, and he spent months preparing for it.
Wow.
And I mean, who fucking knows? I mean, the discipline that it took to do that is pretty amazing. Someone
was talking about mass shootings, and obviously the shooters often killed at the scene, either self-inflicted gunshot or by the police. And
you're right.
They said the problem with that is we really do need to study the brains of mass shooters.
Yes.
And them ending their lives compounds the problem, because we don't. It's one thing to
clue.
Right. It's one thing to look at their social media, but it's another thing to actually study their brain itself and see what's going on to give us a clue about how do we prevent these, how do we, spot this stuff before it gets to this point.
Right, like that bell tower shooter. I mean, he fucking knew and said, "Please look at my brain."
Yeah.
I mean, now people don't want you looking at their brain.
Yeah, the government
Government.
is going to put a chip in there. Yeah.
Well, we solved it.
Yeah, we did it. We solved gun control.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, right.
So next topic.
Good for us.
All right.
It's white people solving the world's problems.
Yep, that's our show. I know it's an antidote to toxic masculinity, but white people solving all the problems is a great name for a show. And we just did it. So good job.
Yeah.
High five.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I really got nothing else, man. It's kind of a depressing end to the whole thing.
It is.
But
I wish you hadn't picked this topic.
yeah,
I blame you.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Okay. See you next time.
All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Take care.
Rock on. You have been listening to Vitruvian Man. If you'd like to get a hold of us, you can either call us at 415-484-8841 or send us an email at vitruvianpod@gmail.com.